It's now time for the upper semis between Method EU and No Girls Allowed. So we'll be starting off our series in Freehold. And now I'm joined by work colleague Sloot and my friends Nagura and Zyronic as we're getting ready. Are you okay? It's okay?
Talk about this at home.
No. Oh, that's right. We live together too. Ooh, unfortunate.
Not after this.
What are you gonna live outside?
No, you were.
Ah.
There's a dumpster out back. That's quite nice.
I want to pass on that one. But, you know, let's pass on that one and start talking about the game a little bit on this one. Freehold coming up, Nagura. We're going to be having, you know, not the most deadly of affixes coming into this one with Tyrannical, Sanguine, and Teeming. A lot of room to be able to kite. There's a lot of areas you can start making space. In particular, I believe we're on a Eudora week, if I'm not mistaken.
For their sake, I hope not. But I believe you're correct.
It's Eudora safe. She's friendly for the rest of the
Oh, it's friendly Eudora onto that
Eudora,
one. So that's even better. So, I mean, you know, the funny thing about it is that the non-Eudora weeks are like the heaviest damage taken because everybody wants to go play in any of the barrel smash stuff to try to get more DPS buffs. I remember healing the girl one time, and it was not pretty. Let me tell you, I've never seen a Boomkin take so much damage out of that one. But anyway, 73% coming in hot here for Method EU as we're getting ourselves ready for Game 1. Between No Girls Allowed and Method EU.
I'm surprised you even saw Boomkin in Dungeons.
I actually like the idea of Jack sleeping outside now.
I'm going to stay at Settles.
Forehead. All right, starting off the dungeon here, Method EU and No Girls Allowed. No Girls Allowed, of course, being the 4th ranked team as of the last cup. So they certainly had quite a good performance. Method EU, they ended up winning the cup last time, but a bit of shaky play. Remember, they had some wipes in Shrine of the Storm. It was a bit weird, and they ended up really just losing to Abra, throwing against themselves. So it looks like Method EU has gotten past that funk this week and had a very dominant first series. We'll see what they can do here as they pop Bloodlust against a rather massive pull that has been line of sighted around the corner by now. No Girls Allowed they're prepping their own pull as Trell leaps in and grabs everything, including one of the 2 Enforcer packs that needs to be killed in order to spawn Sky Captain Craig, and both teams go to town. Not sure I'm liking this no line of sight here, Nagura, though, because it's leaving the crack shots in the back. And disaster here already for Method EU. Frag going down, now going down. They already have to commit their battle res. They get it up on now, but nothing here has aggro on the tank right now. You can only get a taunt every 8 seconds and a reset with Heroic Leap, so somebody else is going to bite the dust if they get anywhere near them.
Now just struggling so much. Now is the first one to go down, and Frag just followed suit because he did have the most aggro with the huge burst AoE that's coming out of this Unholy DK. Now still struggling. You can see just how low he is as he leaps away, hoping to stay alive. You can also see the Sanguine just healing them up so much because of the tank dying, right? You just lose all of this control. Everyone, all the mobs just, they spread out. They're not stacked up anymore, so none of your AoE really helps anymore with the Ring of Peace, with the Typhoon and the Vortex. And now all of a sudden, all of the mobs heal with the Sanguine. So definitely huge mistake here by Method EU. Taking way longer in this pull than they're supposed to, but look at the percentage. Look how much trash they pulled here. Once they finish this off, this is 24-25%. That's an insane percentage they gain out of this very particular pull. While No Girls Allowed did do it a lot cleaner, but they only got 13%.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. They have 2 deaths, but not even just the deaths on the board. They now don't have a battle res against Sky Captain Craig, which has one-shot capability and an 18 Tyrannical. So this could be pretty scary here. You already saw him chunk Frag just for 40% HP at the start of this phase here. A lot of attention is going to be needed from Zalia, who we know loves to play very aggressively as a healer, but will not really be able to do so on this boss. No Girls Allowed is actually combined trash with the boss and Bloodlust here. I don't think they have enough trash there to actually catch the 27%. Good bump there coming out of Undad right now just to make sure that none of that Sanguine heals the boss. But yeah, Nagura, that was quite sloppy from Method and A early on. And not just that, but out of desperation, Zalia threw down the Vortex to grab the ads away from now after he got res, but then the Vortex was on top of a Sanguine, and so just not the Method you love to see, but it looks like they've gotten back on their feet as Sky Captain Craig is now at 62% for them.
Yeah, one more thing to mention is that in the past we had most of the dungeons just stay tyrannical throughout the whole season, same with 45. The other affixes would change, but the main affix, tyrannical and 45, would stay to make practice a little bit easier. But this time around, we switched it up a little bit, and Freehold was 45 the last time around, and now it is tyrannical. So that means that those kind of strategies that they had, like the base strategies that they have for these dungeons, don't work anymore, right? Because tyrannical and 45 changes your strategy up a lot. Method EU adapting, kind of, and having this huge kind of pull that they did at the very start, which would not be possible on 45. They still struggled with it, but it's interesting to see that they managed to change up their strategy completely. We see this boss on Tyrannical, definitely difficult. You see the shots putting the... you see Jinx just dropping to 10% HP from one shot. So they gotta watch out here to make sure all of the damage dealers are on 100% HP at all times when this shot is coming out.
Azalea popping Solar Raz. Mir is getting down to 9% health from one of those shots. So I guess what their gear level doesn't really have one-shot potential. We do see that issue on live and some of the higher keys on Tyrannical. This boss and Eudora, which we commented on before the map, that is not present in this week's rotation on the tournament realm from these teams. Definitely has one-shot potential, but the teams have just enough health to survive one of these Azurite shots going in. Frag popping that AMS after the shot, unfortunately, so he actually missed that, so it really absorbed nothing in the end, but it did not finish him off, luckily for them. 27% still trash on the board for Method EU as there gets Sky Captain Craig in the single digits here. No girls allowed. You know, Method EU is known to have very high single target DPS prowess versus a lot of the other teams, and No Girls Allowed is keeping that gap the same the entire time. It barely changed. Like, they did not let Method EU pull ahead at all. So No Girls Allowed catching up quite quickly here. 6% on Sky Captain Craig. They're behind 10% on Trash. Hopefully they make it up with a larger pull later. But, you know, we still have 2 deaths on the board, but it's probably still less than 10% of how far ahead they are. 10 seconds, excuse me, of how ahead they are, Nagura.
Yeah, so they're actually going down here at the very end for No Girls Allowed. Not a problem. They can finish off the boss after all, but still 5 seconds on the board. Thankfully, he can release right away, and he will just respawn on the first boss as well. Now, one more thing to note is we've been talking about Method EU and why are they so good and why they keep on the top all the time, and that's those kind of small things where one little thing on a change of strategy will just save them a couple of seconds, and if you add it all up, it will just save you a lot of time compared to other teams. But one other thing I want to mention is that they're really good at recovering if there are mistakes. Some other teams, they might be like, oh, tank is dead, now we had a full team wipe, or we need the druid to go off, Shadow Meld, rest everybody. But we saw now go down here, which was a really big pull, and then somehow managed to recover. Of course, it wasn't pretty, right? We saw the Vortex, Sanguine healing them up, Frag going down as well. But they ended up finishing off the pull and not having a full team wipe. So they didn't lose as much time as they could have. So that's one thing to note as well, as they move on and both of the teams doing an insane pull here with some of those trash packs together.
Yeah, they're going to have to be really careful with the Blind Rage and the Shattering Bellows in here and getting interrupts and proper CC down on those. Otherwise, somebody else in the group is going to die rather than just the tank. Huge amounts of damage coming out of these Unholy DKs. Frag topping up at around 900k and obviously starting to drown out just a bit as they finish off the rest of the pack. No Girls Allowed. Star doing an immense amount of damage as well. And Undead actually doing an impressive amount. He peaked at around 300k compared to Mira's on the side of Method EU, who has now pulled the second boss consisting of Captain Rule and Captain Jolly. So no Eudora present, which is quite fortunate for the team, but they're going to have to play very well around the brew buffs that come down that we see frequently every week. Of course, either the haste or the crit buff going on the players, and making sure that you put the bosses in the bad brew buff. It is a huge dot, and you certainly want that extra damage on the bosses, excuse me, because of the high Tyrannical. Now taking a bit of damage there because I think the bosses ate the brew. Yeah.
So now I've got the bad brew, meaning there's a damage over time effect debuff on him, and it just did a lot of damage to him. That's why he drops a lot. Did manage to recover though. Mira's also getting hit by something. This is something we talked about before, right? We said if there's no Eudora, then people just play very aggressively, and they might get hit by one of those AoE abilities just because they want to play greedy and get that buff, right? They want that haste or that crit buff, and they might just soak one of those abilities, and that's why you see those the people drop so low. Now, one thing to note is that we don't have anything that is preventing you to pull trash on top here. We don't have bolstering or anything like that. But it is Sanguine, so you gotta be careful. If they want to do something like that, it probably should be either at the very end of the boss fight, or they have to be very careful when it comes to Sanguine.
Now, keep in mind, these teams do have to be very careful with where they're tanking the boss. It is a Void-heavy week yet again in this dungeon, and we do see a Void Emissary exactly like the previous cups in the corner there. So, fortunately for them, no Eudora that can proxy aggro any of the Rat Trapper pack on the side, but if they get hit by one of the barrel smashes, as you mentioned, Nagura, could put them in range of that. Now, this combo is particularly irritating between Captain Jolly and Captain Raoul, because what happens is you get the Whirlwind Blade going down that the tank needs to absorb as you're getting the zone that you're trying to soak the buff from. So there's just a lot of denial while the players are trying to be greedy and get those buffs. Undead going down on the side of No Girls Allowed. Speaking of greedy, unfortunately for them, they do have the battle res though, and they get that up. Now neither team has a battle res available for about 2 minutes or a minute and a half or so now, as No Girls Allowed is looking to efficiently cleave down both bosses at the same time, while Method EU actually killed Captain Rule first to get rid of the barrel smash, and then Jolly. Actually really impressed to see No Girls Allowed. That was a really efficient cleave from them, and they almost beat or matched the boss time of Method EU. In fact, I think they did, because they pulled the boss a bit after Method EU.
Yeah, that was really impressive by No Girls Allowed. This whole dungeon, they've been playing cleanly. I mean, we have 2 deaths on the board, but both deaths didn't really cost them a lot of time at all. One was at the very last second of the boss fight, so they didn't need to rest, and one was in the middle of this boss fight. So very impressive so far by No Girls Allowed. They also showed in the first series that they played that they're up there, right? They definitely have the strategies, they have the execution, so they're really matching up to Method EU here. So I mean, in the end, they're still 10% behind in trash, just because Method EU did this bigger pull at the very start of the dungeon, and they also pulled a little bit of trash on top of the of Jolly. So that's the difference between them right now. You can see Method EU pulling some more trash on top of Ludwig, while No Girls Allowed not dealing with Ludwig yet. They just finish off some trash before they go.
Blind range, unfortunately, very slowed blind range from Method EU right now, just bathes a bit in that Sanguini Panini that goes down on the ground on top of Ludwig von Tortolin, which, of course, you do have to constantly kite around in circles. He's very slow. The reason for that is as the mobs are dying, Sanguine's going down. So the last thing you want is this very, very high health mob, even in a tyrannical environment, to get a tick of that Sanguini. No Girls Allowed here at 46%. You know, they're kind of matching pace to Method EU here, but because of that first pull at the beginning of the dungeon, they find themselves constantly 10 to 15% behind trash for Method EU. So they need to do something quite extraordinary here in order to catch Method EU, because if they just keep pace at this point, they're going to lose the dungeon. Both teams have 2 deaths, so they have no advantage there. Battle res, only 1 available for each team. Bloodlust timers coming up roughly the same, within a minute and a half of each other, so they only get 1 more left in the dungeon. So you're going to have to see something really aggressive coming out of No Girls Allowed to have any hopes of catching Method EU right now, who is looking to finish off this last emissary.
Yeah, it might be something, you know, in the last boss room, there's so much trash you can pull on top of the last boss if you want to be as greedy as possible, but it's Sanguine, right? So that's going to be a huge deal. So No Girls Allowed actually pulling
2 crushers?
2 crushers, which is something...
You scolded 1 crusher last time.
Yeah, 2 crushers on top of Ludwig, just, I don't know, it just seems so inefficient for melees in general. And they only have 1 rogue with the increased melee range, right? Because there's so much area of denial they cast. You can just see the crashes they cast an area around them, and they also throw rocks the whole time. So I'm not really sure if this is worth it.
The rocks are thrown at range, if I'm not mistaken, so Edelweiss just has to kind of kite around in a circle. But, I mean, Undead goes down. There's the danger that Naguro was talking about. They actually do have the battle res now. Immediately goes up from either Sistar or Edel. I'm not sure who got the res there, but they do have either one of them available. But on top of it, I mean, you're just seeing how they're playing. Sistar, like right now, it's Sistar. He has to back out of the AoE, and he's not doing anything right now. I mean, he's getting a bit of ranged attack in the whole time, but the fact that he's just even losing auto attacks, which is quite significant for a melee, that white damage coming in is just a loss. I mean, this is really inefficient. I totally agree with you. It's akin to pulling, you know, the 6 peacekeepers in Motherlode that we've seen in the previous season. That just wasn't very efficient because teams ended up kiting in circles for 10 minutes. So No Girls Allowed. Bit of chunk damage here on Sistar as they hit 57% trash, looking to finally finish off this pull here, as Method EU is already at 77% trash and looking to chew through Trothak, who has only 66% left.
Yeah, I think it was a huge advantage for Method EU when they pulled so much trash on top of Ludwig. It just saved them so much time. It was so efficient. Dealt with Ludwig, dealt with a lot of trash at the same time. While No Girls Allowed, they were dealing with some trash before they pulled Ludwig, and then they pulled the crashes on top of Ludwig, which is questionable at best. And now we saw the Crusher actually heal a little bit from the Sanguine here for No Girls Allowed side, so they definitely want to be more careful with that. Unfortunately, those Crushers, they cannot be CC'd in any way, so if they stand in a Sanguine and cast like a throw rock, then you can't just typhoon them out of it. So that's definitely a problem as well.
Trothak, 53% here for Method EU. No Girls Allowed still hasn't started on it. They're grabbing more trash, including yet another Crusher. So they really like their Crushers, or I suppose really hate them, which is why they're pulling them in order to kill them. But 61% trash on the board for them as Trothak ominously waits on the edge of the screen there from our observers. Edelweiss goes down, though, and they don't have a battle res. Sistara goes down as well. They can release at the Council of Captains, but it's going to require Troll staying alive for quite a while and any residual damage going on Dilemma or Undead to not finish them off. Troll doing a good job here, but unfortunately, Shield Wall, Last Stand rather, bolstered Last Stand might I add, is gone. Shield Wall is not available either, and Troll starting to go down. Fortunately, Edelweiss comes in to save the day and tries to stabilize the situation, but huge damage still going out on the group as Method EU is now to the remaining 30% on Trothak. And still sitting at their... I think that's actually enough trash to finish off the rest of the dungeon if they do the cannon barrage properly on the Harlan.
They now actually engaged Trothak as well on No Girls Allowed side. Okay, they're just resetting it because they just didn't have enough space to kite around all those mobs while having Sanguine all over the floor. And you saw Trothak just standing there, just denying so much space as well because of his aggro range. So they decided to pull the boss, reset it, and finish off the rest of the mobs. But now, Method EU, they were pulling so much trash slowly into Trothak that it just seemed so efficient, right? I mean, they are on Trothak for quite a while now, but they got at least 10%, if not more, just from fighting Trothak and pulling mobs from all over the place on top of it. Of course, this requires very well management with the Sanguine on the floor, but I don't think Trothak healed at all, so they did a good job managing the Sanguine properly. We saw Ludwig heal a little bit, but not Trothak, so that's good on them because Tyrannical buffs Trothak. It does not actually buff Ludwig.
Yeah, Trothak is about to fall here. And I mean, you're absolutely right, Nigger. And just a lot of inefficiency here from No Girls Allowed. They did commit their Bloodlust. Both teams really had just one Bloodlust left. They decided to commit their Bloodlust to Trothak to kind of counter the fact that he's a very, well, frankly, he's a very unfriendly boss, period. Unfriendly for melee because of the Sharknado that he does that displaces you, but unfriendly to range as well because constantly the Sharks are going out and you guys have to move all the time. So they're trying to counteract by some of the low boss uptime with that Bloodlust. But most teams don't like doing that because they want to complement with a complement, so to speak, where you have full uptime on the boss and can get full uptime out of that Bloodlust as well, which is, it seems what Method EU is going to do here. They're 80% trash now, and looks like they'll be starting on the last boss in a moment. Xaylia has one quick drink, or one quick eat, I suppose, one quick bite of that dirty fish feast on the ground, and there it is. Bloodlust goes up, trash is pulled, and Harlan is nowhere to be seen just yet.
They didn't put Harlan, it is in there somewhere. You can see the Bloodlust being popped as well. Now, what they want to be really careful about is Sanguine, of course. So they want to make sure that as soon as they die, you get something like a Ring of Peace, you get a Typhoon, anything like that. Because once the boss is standing in Sanguine, it's going to be not as easy to pull him out of it. It just needs to be slowly moved out. There's no way of Typhooning the boss or a Ring of Peacing or just displaying it in any sort of way. So we see they did a pretty good job as everything was going down. Enforcer healing a little bit, and those Enforcers are pretty scary for the tank.
Yeah, you know, better them healing than Harlan, though.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. The Shattering Throw is quite irritating. You can see now constantly moving, not only for the Sanguine, but if you outrange the Shattering Toss from one of those Enforcers, that actually ends up failing the cast, and then he tries to run up to you and recast it again. So he's avoiding a lot of those Shattering Tosses so that it doesn't splash on the group in the middle. Xaylia finally moves just a bit out of the group in order to Typhoon, and then root one of the Grenadiers on the side and make sure that it does not get its splash damage on the group. Harlan Sweet now, 61% HP. They still have 11% trash, just because we are in a teaming environment, which requires you to do more trash in the dungeon, and there's more trash present on top of it. So another pull coming in here on top of Harlan Sweet, and I think this is just going to be the ebb and flow of the rest of the dungeon for them. They're constantly going to grab trash on top of Harlan, cleave it down with the quadruple cannonball barrage as Harlan has entered his second phase. There it is, a lot of damage coming in, and then they're probably going to finish it off with one of the Ravagers on the side, I would assume.
Yeah, there was a pretty beautiful stack that they did there. Everyone standing on top of each other, and you can have almost three stacks of this of the artillery on the same spot. So you don't have to move immediately. You saw just how slowly they're moving. You can see it again right here. So they just wait until one spawns and just move slightly, make one step, just to make sure it's cool. Sally actually going down. They do have one battle rest available. Thankfully, they have a DK, so they can get him back up, which Frag is going to do any second now. There we go. So Sally is back alive. They should be able to recover from this, but yeah, now they're out of battle rests.
A typical Method EU fashion, they have so many circumstances where they're almost about to fight. Something almost goes disastrously wrong, but they always just have some kind of out. In this case, they still had a battle res available. Happens all the time to them, and they're just so well able to recover. We saw it at the beginning of the map too, with two of the members going down, now going down with the res. So they're so confident in their play. It's nice to see here as Harlan hits 30% now, meaning that we're taking increased damage, double damage on Harlan, and he deals 100% increased attack speed, which is not really a problem for the tank right now as they pull the remainder of the trash that they need, and they look to cleave it down with that Cannonball Barrage. But No Girls Allowed, more deaths on the board right now.
Yeah, so Method EU actually does have an Emissary of Tides on top here, so they want to be a little bit careful because there's no way of stunning or interrupting or seeing in any form, but they did manage to pull it off with the friendly fire from the artillery here as they have the 100% trash now. Harlan Sweet about to go down, and they're going to go 1-0 against No Girls Allowed.
Method EU taking the game number 1 on Freehold. Impressive performance onto that one. A couple deaths, but as you mentioned previously, Sloot, whenever they fall down, they find a good way to be able to recover, get back into it. And it kind of shows if you want to be able to stand up against Method EU, you have to be good and lucky at these times.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, I don't know how many situations there's been where Method EU, somebody dies, Zilia dies, they somehow four-man the boss, they somehow recover from wipe. They do it all the time, and they just never stop going. I believe it was Cup 1 against Abra in Shrine, where they had the wipe at the bridge, and Abra was ahead, and it looked like they were going to lose the map, and then Zmok, had the little slip-up at the end, but after that, Method had one slip-up, and that's it. They stuck to their game, and they just went through and ended up winning the map. So it somehow always seems to work out for this team.
It always seems to come up a positive onto that one's ironic, and they showed it just from the beginning out the gates.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's really incredible about Method EU's run is they did a really good job of adapting to the tyrannical change from Fortified. They changed their route completely. Their first pull was a lot bigger. It was a lot more put together. And even though Fragments died, he died at the end of the pull after he got most of his burst damage off, so it wasn't that big of a deal. They were able to finish off the pack. I was actually very impressed with how both teams dealt with Sky Captain Crag. I was going to mention before we went into game, but unfortunately went too quickly. Sky Captain Crag on Tyrannical is incredibly dangerous. If this was like a Grievous week on Freehold, we could have seen multiple deaths on the boss. You kept talking about how Mirrors was dropping to 9 or 10% from one shot. It could have been really dangerous. That being said, Method EU, they played clean in this dungeon, and I was kind of hoping for more from No Girls Allowed because they showed a lot of promise in this dungeon in the first cup, but I feel like even if they played clean in this dungeon, their routing was not good enough to keep up with what Method EU was doing.
Yeah, and speaking of routing, let's take a look at the MDT for Method EU onto this one.
Yeah, and this is a very clear example of what Method EU did better than No Girls Allowed in this dungeon. What I have here on the screen, these first two packs are pretty much what No Girls Allowed was pulling for their first two pulls. This only adds up to 13% of the pulls. Method EU added in the Patrol, this pack with the Emissary of the Tides, as well as this 3-pack back here before the Staircase into their first pull, totaling up to 27%, more than double what No Girls Allowed had. And you can see in the clip here how they actually put this together. They end up pulling the 3-pack before they pull anything else, and then they end up trixing the final pack 2 now, and they end up LOSing it all behind the pillar, just perfectly stacked together, allowing that Unholy DK to really pop off an AoE damage, and this was just a masterfully put together pull from them.
It's incredible to be able to start showing the setup and how well they're going to be able to start pulling it off, and I guess they had to start shadow melding off that Void Emissary they passed very early on, but they were able to perform, and that's what you want to be seeing, because they're going to need it really, they're going to need top performance when they go into Waycrest Manor, because that Bursting Necrotic is going to be nasty under that one.
And, it's funny with Waycrest Manor, now was the guy that was very upset about it socially. He was tweeting, he's like, who made these affixes, and who invented Fortified Bursting Necrotic? And because there's a lot of pressure on the tank because of that combo with not being able to be healed while Bursting's ticking. So it seemed like they're usually very proud of their times and publicizing their times, but publishing their times rather. But this was one dungeon that really seemed to get to them.
This is going to be a very fun next matchup, so you're not going to want to miss it, guys. We'll be taking a quick break before we go into Game 2. It'll be Waycrest Manor. The wait is over as we're getting ourselves ready for Game 2 right now between No Girls Allowed and Method EU. It's going to be Waycrest Manor from the weekly Twitch chat Twitter poll feed. You guys chose the affixes. It's going to be Bursting Necrotic Fortified. It's going to be a great one. And Sloot, I can't wait.
Oh, I can't wait either. I mean, those meanie bobeanies in Twitter, but...
3 Demon Hunters! 3 Demon Hunters, let's do it!
Okay, well, I guess reliance on darkness here from No Girls Allowed to counter the bursting stack. So triple Havoc Demon Hunter coming in here, plus a Brewmaster. So the only staple pick we see here is the Resto Druid because they need a battle rest. So that's a lot of purple in one area. I've never seen so many purple rogues stacked up on one side of the equation. Both teams, as usual, just chewing through the beginning pack here and then heading right over to the top left to the Triad area.
You know what the really good part is about having 3 purple rogues is that you can look at the damage meters and you can always tell who the best player is because it's the one who does the most damage, and you don't even have different classes this time around. So Dilemma, definitely the best Demon Hunter in No Girls Allowed, confirmed by me. And Method EU already on the first boss. They still have their Bloodlust ready, so I'm not completely sure if they want to maybe pull some trash on top and then use it then.
Yeah, both teams actually have their Bloodlust, and it looks like they're not pulling anything just yet. What we did see in some of the previous... there's the Bloodlust right now for Method EU. They did indeed pull Trash. Yeah, we can see it on the side of the Emissary of the Tides. I believe they wait for Selena to be done before being aggressive with the Trash, because just having the Trash on top of a 50% reduced healing aura is kind of rough. So... excuse me, both teams doing kind of the same thing here. Actually, not even the same thing. We're not seeing extra Trash pulled over from No Girls Allowed right now, but Method EU indeed has killed off another 3%. Probably will be slightly higher worth of Trash in just a moment here as they're getting ready to chew through Sister Briar's first phase and holding them accountable, essentially, is No Girls Allowed right on their tail with damage. But again, at Nigura, we're starting to see already in this dungeon the same kind of story unfold. Both teams keeping up with each other through raw progression in the dungeon, but Method EU just doing everything more efficiently. Hey, here's 3% Trash cleave on top of the boss. Here's another 2% here. Here's another 3% here. And that's how they end up pulling so far ahead always.
Yeah, we definitely see... I mean, No Girls Allowed didn't play bad the last dungeon, right? They seemed to be doing well. They didn't have many mistakes. It's really just that they had the worst strategy. They were just less efficient, really. So that was the difference between those two teams, at least in Treehold. We'll see what happens here in Wakecrest Manor. I mean, No Girls Allowed definitely have a plan going into this, because they're playing 3 Demon Hunters, so there must be a reason behind this. One thing Demon Hunters are really good at is resisting magic damage, right? They by default get less magic damage already, and then on top of that they also have Blur, a 30% damage reduction on a 1-minute cooldown, so that's just an insane defensive cooldowns that they have against magic damage in general.
Not to mention when they're in meta form, 4-minute cooldown, they're just indestructible because they're leeches. I mean, just ridiculous that you just can't kill them. They could probably heal through bursting unless it's a direct one-shot. Which, you know what? Come to think of it, maybe they're going for a full room pull strat on Raw and then just having everyone meta and stay alive. Not really sure what Edelweiss is going to do in that situation. Maybe she'll just run out of the room and wait for everybody to finish what they need to do. I don't even know how Troll would survive that, to be honest. He doesn't have any immunity, and he's not running a Dwarf or anything of the sort. Both tanks right now are Night Elves or Shadow Meld, so they actually did not play into the Necrotic as a result. Now, doing a fairly aggressive pull here around the corner now. Very dangerous Trash that comes out of this, the captains and the guards, but it looks like they don't want anything to do with it, so they waited for one of the Soul Weavers to spawn, which is why they didn't Shadow Meld right away. They Shadow Melded everything off, and now they're getting ready for a pull in the courtyard, it seems. Or from the courtyard.
I'm not completely sure if No Girls Allowed was planning on pulling this Rune Weaver. I think this was a mistake. It looks like they were doing the same thing as Method EU, just running through, Shadow Melting off, and then the Rune Weaver just kind of didn't lose aggro. So now they pull it on top of some of those Jagged Hounds, but I do believe this is a mistake and might slow them down a little bit. Now, one thing to note, that both of the tanks that we saw in Wakecrest earlier were actually playing Dwarf to get rid of the Necrotic stacks, but both Now and Trell are playing Night Elf for the Shadow Meld, so they do not have the Dwarf racial to get rid of the Necrotic stacks in case they want to.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Now taking a lot of damage here, 35 stacks. The bursting does fall off. He refreshes his stacks, but they do kill the pack, meaning Necrotic drops immediately, and Zayla is able to heal him up. That's part of the danger. Dilemma going down on the side of No Girls Allowed. First death of the dungeon on either side as Edelweiss gets one of the dots on her. She's not able to cleanse it off because I believe that's a disease.
Yeah.
But the Trell should be able to cleanse it off. He saw how much damage it's doing and how dangerous it was for Edelweiss, but he can't commit, or doesn't want to commit the GCD. Maybe they're in a fight right now or something. I don't know. But Sistar going down just a bit, 60%. Looks like they're going to stabilize this Rune Weaver that they accidentally pulled, and I totally agree with you. It was an accident. Zayla going down to 11%. Let's put that one on hold for a sec as they deal with this Emissary. Finally, they cleave it down enough just to manage to stabilize as they get the rest of these Thorn Shapers down. Same pull coming in here right now for No Girls Allowed as metas are coming back in about 20 seconds for these Demon Hunters.
We actually did see Zalia also having one of those diseases on him as he dropped very low, on top of having a Void Emissary AoE go off on him. And as soon as he saw Zalia drop low, Maris did dispel the debuff off of Zalia, and he also dispelled himself. So Maris definitely using that dispel to make sure that Zalia has an easier job keeping everybody alive. And now we see another pull, Solvat Goliath actually being pulled on top of this. You saw Jinji the Rogue actually Tricks of the Trade on Now, and he was pulling the rest of the Trash away to be sure that they don't aggro Brindle here, the mini-boss.
Yeah, no, like, well done by them. We've seen a lot of teams do this. It seems to be becoming more popular to just kind of skip Matron Brindle entirely. She is very dangerous in the fortified environment, a lot of damage. And it's not even really just the danger, she's just so much health, and it's so inefficient to cleave her down. Especially, you want to put her in fire, but if you want to pull her with the Soulbound Goliath, you can't put her in fire because the Soulbound Goliath then resets when you don't want him to. So best to just avoid her at all costs, as they did. No Girls Allowed getting ready here to pull the Emissary of the Tides on top of two Thorn Shapers. So hopefully they manage to chew through that quickly, else they will get some of those soul fetishes go off. Now, they have 3 Demon Hunters, they have 3 offensive Dispels, which is actually quite nice. So not really the end of the world should the Soul Fetishes get off on the side of No Girls Allowed.
And one more thing, they don't have a rogue, so they cannot do this whole skip that we just saw. Oh, okay, so Sistar did get dispelled. He had 2 debuffs on him, so thankfully Trell did use that dispel to make sure that Sistar stays alive. But yeah, they have to deal with the Brindle here because no rogues, so they're not able to pull it away. They could pull it away and then Shadow Melt, but that's way riskier, and you're in a corner, and it's just much more difficult. Trell actually going down. Soul Fetish.
Yeah, Matron Brindle has Soul Fetish. Nobody consumed magic on the Soul Fetish before the Thorn. No, not let alone interrupted. They missed the cleanse on it, the consume magic, so it ended up buffing Matron Brindle, and now they're probably desperately trying to consume magic off of Matron Brindle, and if they're not, they better be. It's a 10-second cooldown. Her stack should be gone soon. There it is. She's not glowing blue anymore, so they get back in. Trell is already immediately returned, and they don't have a battle res right now, so a bit of a mistake from them. And, you know, even if this pull had gone swimmingly to Gur, this is so much time lost. This is so inefficient. Method U's already pulled her to the side, almost killed Soulbound Goliath at 21% right now. No Girls Allowed is still dealing with Matron Brindle. Undad is dead. Trell died on top of it. Undad is not releasing for whatever reason right now, and I don't know. I'm not a fan of this. This is a huge amount of time lost. If they had to do this without the Rogue, they should have had either somebody pull her and Shadow Meld, or just pull it with something, because this is a huge inefficiency.
Yeah, and one thing to note about I'm pretty sure the Soul Fetish is 5 stacks, right? And each dispel that you can do with the Demon Hunter offensive dispel only removes 1 stack. So it does cost a little bit of time to get rid of them too, so you just want to interrupt it. We did talk about it before, where we said, you know, Demon Hunter can dispel it, but, you know, it takes quite a while until you get rid of those 5 stacks.
I think you can actually grab the buff from them before they die, the 1 stack that they have. The fact
yeah, maybe.
You can do that. I'm pretty sure like that's available on live. I could be mistaken, but I think you can kind of strip that from them early. Nonetheless, No Girls Allowed here, 85% right now on Soulbound Goliath. Finally on the boss, chewing it down, something that Method U's already dealt with, plus once again, they're 5% ahead on Trash, no deaths on the board. So it's cool to see this comp from No Girls Allowed, and I'm certainly not going to point fingers at the comp. I think they're chewing through damage really well. I think the strat in terms of efficiency of routing can certainly be done with this comp. They have Night Elves for Shadow Meld, so it's nothing to do with the comp. I think they're more inefficient than Method EU right now.
It definitely seems like it. It's the same problem we saw in Freehold as well. Trell actually struggling a little bit here to survive Soulbound Goliath damage as they pulled the boss and also pulled up Thorn Shapers on top of it. So they want to make sure that they interrupt as much as possible. You see the debuffs on Edelweiss and Undead just doing so much damage, and Trell doesn't really have time to dispel him because he's dying himself. You look how low he drops as Edel goes down. So this is going to be a full team wipe.
It's going to be a team wipe. The Demon Hunters might want to get in the hall to try and finish off the Trash before Soulbound Goliath finishes them off, but full team wipe coming in here from No Girls Allowed. That'll seal the deal, at least for now. But with Method U's pace that they're going at, even with the dangerous Hall pull they just did, full of maggots, and as a result, spit debuffs, and of course, well, no bursting from the maggots, but spit debuffs and necrotic stacks on the tank. You can see how much Method U's respecting it. They usually pull this entire Hall and do a crazy pull. They actually did it in 2 separate pulls this week, just because of how dangerous this part of the dungeon really is.
Yeah, and you see now, you know what? Ooh. He's almost going down here as the start of the pull, just because he charges in, he immediately gets auto-attacked by all of them, applying so many necrotic stacks, and it's so hard for him to survive, but they did recover, did get him back up. At this point, he needs to start cutting though, because you can see just how high those necrotic stacks are going, and he's just going to be unhealable very soon. That's why you see now in the back here, the Ring of Peace coming out, and this is really how you have to deal with the necrotic, right? You want to make sure that as soon as the stacks are high and the tank has enough aggro, you just walk away, get the Ring of Peace, make sure everything dies before the tank gets aggro again, or before they reach the tank rather. And as you mentioned, necrotic just disappears as soon as you kill off all the mobs. So that's the goal. You don't want to focus something down first and then go on something else. You kind of just want to AoE everything as fast as possible to make sure the tank gets out of combat to get clear of those necrotic stacks.
It's not just even that, but they timed it really well there. He started running away as the first of the mobs were dying, because you're right, until you kill all the mobs, necrotic stays there. So the problem is you're having bursting combined with necrotic that I've mentioned before. So he went and cleared his necrotic stacks before the bursting started ramping up on the group, allowing him to actually be healed. Mira is unfortunately going down. Frag going down as well. 2 battle reses available, but it's going to be a full team wipe here for Method EU. They bit off more they could chew right now, and it looks like they're going to have to release in just a moment here and get back into action. I mean, the moment Frag and Miraz died on that pull, there was no saving it. Miraz did did get the battle res, as you can see. They had 2 on the board, now they only have 1. Used the battle res in order to save the run back, and is using his resuscitate on Xaylia, who is now revitalizing or AoE resing the group. A bit of a slip up here for Method EU.
Yeah, I believe what happened was that they were engaging Raul, and then they pulled the whole room back. And what happened was that there was an enchanted emissary that hasn't been dealt with properly. So I believe people just killed. Well, in theory, yes, but they just either they forgot about it or they didn't get the proper CC on it that they wanted to. Maybe the Vortex was on cooldown or the Ring was on cooldown, and then they had the enchanted emissary just coming in, and I think they just killed themselves. I'm not completely sure what exactly happened, but definitely a huge mistake by Method EU, as they have a full team wipe. Now they have their Bloodlust available. They're probably going to use it for a Ral and the pull. You see just how much bursting everyone has, but they're fine now. But yeah, maybe they use it for a Ral.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that Enchanted Emissary's aura reflects 200% of damage done. So, I mean, we all know Jimmy, right? Fragnance, he gets in there and he wants to kill everything right away, and he probably didn't notice that the reflect was up. So Mirrors and him basically, I believe, spell reflected them, damage reflected themselves on it. We'll have to see if Tettles had a good look at that backstage. We'll see during the analysis clip. But nonetheless, they have now started on Raw the Gluttonous, 85%. It looks like they are indeed holding on to that Bloodlust, refusing to use it too early. Maybe I wouldn't be shocked if they combine it with either the Gloom Horrors on Gorak Tool at the end of the dungeon or the massive Witch pull along with Lord and Lady Waycrest. So those are 2 options where they could be really aggressive with that Bloodlust, and are of course very dangerous pulls as well. No Girls Allowed has now dealt with, oh no, they haven't dealt with the Soulbound Goliath yet. Big pull coming in here from them, and they did pull the whole room here with Raw, as we said earlier. They're gonna have to be really careful. Troll taking a huge amount of damage. Dilemma goes down, and it looks like that pull just never came together in the first place. Troll was running around trying to get aggro and everything. DHs were getting hit. Enchanted Emissary was running all over the place, so they did have full intent to do that pull, but it didn't work out. Fortunately for them, the DHs did not use their Metamorphosis, so they can try it again if they want, but that pull is very hard to do, especially if you don't have any misdirects. Everybody has to be very disciplined about where the mobs go and how quickly they get there.
They also didn't commit the Bloodlust. I assume they would want to commit it right there, and they're metas too, so they can try it again, as you mentioned. Now, one more thing to note about Demon Hunters. We've been talking about true CC in the form of sap from rogues, which does not put you in combat if you walk past them. So if you have a bunch of mobs, let's say 2 or 3, and you sap them all and you walk past with your group, you can stay out of combat. But almost all of the other CCs do not work this way. If you have a Frost Trap, for example, from a Hunter or a Paralyzed, you still get in combat if you go in aggro range. But the Demon Hunter Cage actually works the same way as Sap. Those 2 CCs are the only true CCs in game, so Demon Hunter definitely having some advantages here too, which you could work around if you run a comp like that.
Yeah, true, but where exactly do they want to use that? Like, there's no point in this dungeon. I mean, that's something good for, let's say, Tol Dagor, right? We have a couple of double packs, even triple packs that you want to skip in the hallways. That's totally cool there, but I mean, here, I don't really know if they get full advantage. At least, look, I haven't seen them use it in the dungeon
that's
at all.
True.
So I think for the most part, they're going straight into it. Lot of taking damage here on the group right now. Now goes down. They do have the battle res available, but they're not going to commit to it. Oh, actually, they do commit to it. There goes the battle res. Yet again, they managed to escape death, almost a full team wipe, but they had that battle res available. Spit was taking all over the place. Xaylia makes sure everyone's nice and healthy and gets now back up to make sure that this fortified Rune Weaver does not finish off the rest of the group. Now, No Girls Allowed going for another pull here, but it looks like this time a bit more modest. They are not pulling the entire room on top of Raw.
Yeah, and both teams struggling quite a bit in this dungeon. This is probably why those teams complain so much. Shout out to Twitter for choosing those beautiful affixes. They're insanely fun to watch. Thank you very much. The team's not so happy though, as you can see with their wives coming in. But Method EU, they're all working on... Oh, this was something I wanted to talk about before, because I wanted to know if they're going to do a similar thing as we saw from Method NA, where they're... going backwards after the last boss. Talk to the NPC, go to the first room, but it doesn't seem like it because they're dealing with this room right now. So they're, running a little bit of a different strategy here where they finish off these survivalists and the marksmen, and then they go to the last boss. Jinji going down, so there's some problems here.
Yeah, Jinji took a chunk damage from the Void Touch emissary that they pulled in the kitchen. You can see it at the top of the observer view here. By pulling all the maggots out, you aggro that. You can, of course, line of sight it, but unfortunately, while DPSing, Jinji kind of snuck around the side and got hit by it once or twice. Combine that with a couple of debuffs in the group, it finished him off. He doesn't have cheat death available, so they're going to opt to just do a full run downstairs right now and shadow meld the rest of this off. I don't know if they're actually going to be in the spherical radius of rezzing Gingy, even though it's 100-yard range, and that's what you can see Zalia's trying to get in range of him to do. I believe they will. I mean, they're just technically under the floor of where he died right now, but if not, he is a rogue, and he can get back on the opposite side of where the Void is in the kitchen, and they managed to do it. So they're going to get started here on Lord and Lady Raycrest. We'll see if they decide to dedicate their Bloodlust here in a moment. No Girls Allowed has finally finished off that pull after some more deaths. They're now at 16, and they've started on Raw. Both Bloodlusts have been activated. One on Raw here for No Girls Allowed, and one on Method EU with the aggressive trash pull plus Lord Waycrest.
Yeah, so No Girls Allowed not really pulling anything on top here, but they just have to use their Bloodlust because they want to make use of it. They don't just want to sit on it forever, as Method EU does pull a lot of trash on top here. So you can see the bursting stacks on top of having the AoE damage coming out of the first phase of this fight is hurting them quite a bit. You see now having so many necrotic stacks as well. Okay. So he will have to reset somehow.
That's what he's doing right now. Finally managed to get the reset off. I actually think the boss reached him before he reset, but he very luckily parried the next melee, so he didn't apply necrotic, so really lucky for them there. There is a Void Emissary behind the group in a 180-degree camera view of where Method EU is right now, so they have to be very careful where they take this boss, which is why you saw now Heroic Leap along the edge of the play field to make sure that he doesn't accidentally aggro the Void Emissary on the side and cause a bit of issue for the group there. You can play around it even if you aggro it, but makes it even more of a pain in the butt. Lord Waycrest hitting his last full bar of health as Lady Waycrest is about to join him, and Rawl is at 30% for No Girls Allowed.
Yeah, you see, we saw some of the teams struggle a little bit on this fight. We saw Tank go down earlier at the very end of this fight. Now, usually you want to just focus down Lord Waycrest and then go on Lady Waycrest. If you want to be efficient, though, you just kind of cleave both at the same time. It does more damage the longer they're alive, though, so you want to watch out for that. And of course, they both also apply Necrotic. I don't think Lady Waycrest melees as much because she casts a lot, so not too dangerous. As we can see, Lady Waycrest is getting cleaved as well, so they definitely go for efficiency rather than safety here. It's also fortified, so shouldn't be too dangerous for those teams to play for efficiency.
Big Dilemma coming in here for No Girls Allowed, as Dilemma himself falls over yet again for death 17 for No Girls Allowed, looking to maybe res him. I don't know. Maybe they're mad at him. I'm not really sure. Finally, the res comes up, so he does manage to get up. And they still have Soulbound Goliath because if you did forget, it seemed like ages ago, but they did actually wipe to Soulbound Goliath earlier in the dungeon, combining it with a lot of the trash that just didn't work out for them. So they are basically a boss and a half behind at this point. Method EU is finished with their encounter already and are cleaving down the Gloom Horrors.
Yeah, so Method EU showing that, they're not perfect. They definitely can make mistakes too. Had a full team wipe coming in here. Unfortunately, No Girls Allowed struggling even more than Method EU did. There was a chance, really, for No Girls Allowed to win this dungeon. There definitely was an opening with those mistakes that Method EU made, but No Girls Allowed is struggling even more. Just not being practiced enough maybe in this dungeon, just having too many mistakes, 17 deaths, while Method EU has still 7 deaths too, right? But it's not 17, so I think the math checks out. 17 is more than 7. Method EU, they are on Gorak Tool now. They are 99% trash. Not completely sure where they're going to get the last percent. Not sure if there's a horror somewhere that they didn't pull, but they definitely need something.
Well, I'll tell you, they're going to get their last percent from somewhere in this dungeon, that's for sure. Gorak Tool right now at 80% on the board. Soulbound Goliath is at 41%. Still 67% trash only right now on the board for No Girls Allowed. Certainly not the cleanest of pulls. Slightly reminiscent of their Motherload issues last week. But, I mean, look, this was a time trial dungeon, if I'm not mistaken, of course. So, it's a dungeon they've been exposed to. Oh, was it not?
It was not. No.
Oh, no, of course.
Tall, yeah.
Yeah, it was a tall. Yeah, we made that mistake earlier. But I was thinking about it because so many people have complained about this dungeon that I thought it was a time trial dungeon. But, I mean, I guess they're not as well practiced in it, whatever it may be. But to bring 3 Havocs to this dungeon, surely they must have had something up their sleeve. I mean, you saw some aggressive pulls coming out of the team earlier, just trying, full room pull with Rawl, for instance. That's not something you just do on a whim. That's something that you've practiced before. So they've definitely had some exposure to this dungeon. 30% here at Gorak Tool. Method EU still has 1% trash somewhere in this dungeon, and No Girls Allowed has finished off Soulbound Goliath and is moving into the kitchen area.
Yeah, Method EU definitely not their cleanest dungeon for sure. They also had some mistakes in their freehold earlier, still managed to beat No Girls Allowed though. So Method EU showing, they're not invincible, right? You can beat them if you just meet them in a dungeon where they're making mistakes. As long as you play better and you play perfectly, there's a chance to win. But No Girls Allowed, unfortunately, not winning against Method EU this time around as they're finishing off Gorak Tool here. again, they need this 1% here. They probably mismanaged it a little bit, so still just showing some mistakes. But at this point, they're just so far ahead. It doesn't even matter. They just need to finish off this last Mark Sister, and then they'll get the 100% and win against No Girls Allowed 2-0.
Yeah, so they decided to grab the Mark Sister in the corner where the Void Emissary was in Lord and Lady Waycrest's room, and I guess well, if you pull her, it does proxy aggro the Void Emissary. Like, we know that from live, so they couldn't grab it with that big pile during their Bloodlust. I mean, they could, but then they'd have to sit where they are now to LOS the entire time for the boss fight, and it gets messy. But that's all she wrote. That's all they needed, and Method EU with another clean sweep, clean-ish sweep of 2-0 over No Girls Allowed, Jack.
About as clean as you get, you know. All the Demon Hunters, of course, they thought they'd bring 3 Havocs, and they kind of wreaked havoc on their time trial under that one.
Been sitting
you know,
on the
Illidan. I'm not done.
I'm sorry.
Illidan sacrificed his eyes. These guys sacrificed their key under this one. That's all I have for now. Sorry, I can take it. I got like a whole list.
I want to give this some legitimacy. This is actually a strategy we've seen before. Because, okay, these guys weren't practicing this dungeon. It was very clear from the way they played. That being said, the 3 Demon Hunter comp is actually pretty legitimate. We saw it in Mauve Souls in last MDI in time trials. We saw quad Demon Hunter with no healer played just because they can heal themselves. And all of these guys were running soul rending, so they had the 10% leech and 10% more leech while they were in meta. So I
saw it on my leather runs. I was getting geared up on my druid.
Oh yeah, that means it's great in there too. I mean, they're a good class for bursting. They're a good class. Well, necrotic, they don't really care about necrotic, but they're good to heal themselves through bursting. That might have just been an overreaction, like, okay, well, what can we do to heal ourselves through bursting? Oh, we can just play Demon Hunter and heal ourselves, and otherwise doesn't have to worry. But I mean, it was not good execution. I think the most important thing to mention at this dungeon is Method EU didn't really play that well. They did not have a clean run in the slightest.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that comes into play when maybe that's part of their expectation when they look at their bracket and they say, okay, who are we going to start facing up against? Do we think Pain for Femme or No Girls Allowed are going to be really practicing to knock us out of the upper semis game? Probably not. So let's say, okay, we're going to get, you know, a little bit of practice time into this. You know, for practicing for 9 dungeons, for example, they might, you know, make it 1/12 of their practice time, 1/13 of their practice time, something like that. But certainly not going to be a major component because they kind of had the expectation that their opponents felt similarly to that. So Method EU rounds up into that upper finals. Again, no big surprise to see them there.